I'm ready.
I'm rolling.
You're rolling.
I'm rolling.
Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
This is going to be fun.
This is going to be great.
Pastor John Gray, this is your life.
I just can't believe it. I'm living a dream.
You were born in Cincinnati, Ohio?
Yes.
Take us way back when.
Oh, my goodness. Cincinnati, Ohio. And my mom and dad met there, musicians. My father is a jazz organist. My mother was a church pianist. It was the good girl who met the guy with a little bit of an edge to him, but he was still articulate. And I was the product of their union. And they got divorced when I was about 4.5. And so my father wasn't really a big influence as far as in my life. I only saw him maybe 4 times. But my mother, whatever I am, whatever I have of value came from her life example, her character, her integrity, her love for God, her commitment to the community. But most importantly now, as I'm seeing how my life is unfolding, is the way she treated people that didn't think like her and didn't come from her background. My mom was always building bridges, and she loved everybody the same. And so that's where I learned that the value of an individual is internal. And there are no external factors that diminish the value of a person.
When you were a child, what did you think you wanted to do in life?
I wanted to be a lawyer. When I was real young, I wanted to be like a singer because I learned early on in church that I could sing and girls like singers. Yeah, and I wanted to sing, but there was this calling over here, and my mother's over here praying, but I want to be a singer, and she's praying, and God listened to her and not me, because I would have been a horrible R&B singer, because I don't have the R&B look. I'd be too friendly, like, hey, ladies, volare, it would have been more like a Vegas lounge act, but
So God knew what he was doing.
he knew what he was doing. He did. I wanted to be a lawyer. As I was moving towards college, high school, the end of high school into college, either a lawyer or a politician, because I was very concerned, even back in the early 90s, with what I saw were these disparate, income inequality, and we still had racial challenges. Cincinnati has had its challenges when it came to, racial healing and harmony. And so that was the incubator for who I would become. Had no clue, but God knew.
So if you're leaning toward politics and law, something must have happened to bring you to the ministry.
Yeah. Well, I always grew up in church. I knew who Jesus was for myself at 7. But I also watched my mother model the Christian life. And she was really one of the few people that I saw actually live out the tenets and the teachings of Jesus, not in a religious way. She had a passion. It was weird. I was like, you really believe this? And so that informed my own theology. But what I realized is that Jesus, if it was going to be something real, if I was going to stake my life on it, I needed to see who he was as a man applied to my life. And I watched through the way I read scripture. I'm visual, and I'm imagining Jesus, the man, speaking to people from different backgrounds, whether it's the Samaritan woman or the prostitute in Luke 7, or the drunkards or the wine bibbers or the tax collectors, or all these people who are very non-religious. And he would reach to them and he would meet them where they were, and they would find common ground. And I was fascinated by someone who had all of this beauty and perfection and prophecies, who was willing to lay it all down to reach the most broken people. And I think at the core of Christian thought, we need to be identifying with that version of Jesus as opposed to this anesthetized, safe Jesus. And for me, I want to reach people where they are, where they're hurting, where they're broken. And I don't mind sharing my own scars, my own flaws, my own failures to help push what I believe is a relevant message to hurting people.
So what I'm seeing is your political ideology carrying over to theology.
Absolutely. I think, and I would never compare myself to Dr. King, but people miss the fact that Dr. King was not a politician or a civil rights leader first. He was a pastor. And what I believe he caught quicker than most, and probably one of the first, is that you cannot read New Testament scripture without having a social justice component, because everyone has inherent value, no matter who you are. And that value is equal because we were created by the same God. And so for me, looking at the example of a Dr. King who took biblical principles and applied them to social justice issues, I see a need now for voices to be unapologetic in the times that we face. But can you do that without offending people? And that's the balance, because you don't want to invalidate one individual's perspective because you don't agree. And so for me, I'm not saying that I'm apolitical, but I'm very wise in how I express my political views, because everybody comes from somewhere. And I don't know how an individual got to their particular ideology, because at the core of me, I'm a pastor and I'm concerned about your soul. But that's an eternal thing. Now let's deal with what we have to handle while we're on the earth together. We got one planet, and we got a lot of people with varying opinions about life and what matters. And so I hope my voice is a bridge to kind of help bring these, disparate places and these polaric ideologies together.
I see Dr. King as a role model in your life.
Absolutely.
I see your mother as a role model.
Absolutely.
Were there others that you looked up to as you were developing your ministry?
Yeah, absolutely. There were a number of voices that people wouldn't know. There was a gentleman who's still very close in my life, Dr. James Mormon, pastor out of Detroit, Michigan. Years ago, when I was doing stage plays, I did a play in Detroit, Michigan, and after the play was over, he came up to me and said, "Young man, God has his hand on you, and you don't have a clue what he's about to do." And I'm sitting there like, I just want to be an actor at this point. I'd sang background with Kirk Franklin. I was touring with, theatrical productions. And he said, "You're going to be one of the most relevant preachers of your generation." This was many years ago. He said, "God's going to use you the whole world. He's going to take you around the whole world." And I'm sitting here like, you've been drinking your communion juice, haven't you? You drink the real stuff. Yeah. That's not Riesling, sir. But he was right. And it was mind-boggling. And everything that he said, everything that he prophesied has come to pass. I think about people like Sue Huggins, who was my 5th grade teacher. Gail Campbell, who was my 1st grade teacher. People who saw things in me and spoke life into me, opened me up to different parts of life. My teacher, Miss Huggins, who I love, she got me into folk music. Bye, bye, Miss American Pie. Drove the Chevy to the levee, but the levee was dry. Them good old boys drinking whiskey and rye, singing, "This will be the day that I die. This will be the day that I die." And I was sitting there and I was crying in the 5th grade because I didn't know what whiskey or rye was. I thought that was bread. I didn't know. But it touched my heart because it came from a really authentic place. And so these educators really unlocked some things for me, because growing up in a primarily African-American neighborhood and being introduced to these other parts of culture helped me to understand that my vision or my lens is not the only lens that exists. And that helped me to build bridges with people that don't look like me and don't think like me. And I didn't know that those things would be the foundation of who I am right now as far as how people see me and how I'm being used.
That's a very important viewpoint, especially when you look at today's culture and when you look at what's happening in communities when it comes to politics, not always looking through your lens. Give me a God way of seeing that.
Wow. I've heard people say things like God doesn't see color, and I disagree, because he created it. The diversity of humanity is God's tapestry. It's his mosaic. And I have learned, because I came from a very conservative background as it pertains to theology. And so there were certain people that, depending on what you were walking through or how you were defined, you were ostracized or demonized. And I realized that that's actually not the character of the man that I've been reading about, because Jesus touched what society would deem were the worst of the worst. And for me, I believe that God sees us as his children. God doesn't have grandchildren. He only has children. So it's not like he's disconnected from some and connected to others. Now, there are those who choose not to believe that, and that's okay. Everyone has that right. But for me, I found value in identifying with the divine, eternal nature of who I am. And so Jesus is not just in the pages of a book, but I identify with being an outsider, being overlooked, undervalued, marginalized. I know what it's like to feel alone. You know, the Bible says Jesus was a man of sorrow, acquainted with grief. Many times I tell my wife that even after I've preached to thousands, there are times that I have to fight depression off. It's like a blanket, and I can feel it trying to attach to me. There are times when I'm longing for home, the simplicity of Cincinnati, the simplicity of being home, the simplicity of smelling my mom cooking in the next room. You know, we didn't have a lot of money. We had a 2-bedroom apartment. She had an air conditioning main unit in her. Is that somebody's phone? I'm sorry. Is somebody's phone on?
We didn't have a lot of money.
Whose phone was that?
It was a watch.
All right, let's get that watch off. Jesus. In the middle of an interview. I'm in a deep moment.
Back in a 2-bedroom apartment.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, my mom and I, we didn't have a lot of money because she was always giving it away. It would frustrate me. You know, she had a lot of siblings. Both of her parents at the time were still alive. And she's, you know, paying bills for other people. She's meeting needs. She's giving to the church. And I'm like, I want some gym shoes. And she was like, we're going to go to this garage sale. We'll find you something there and we'll get it secondhand. And I remember that she would sacrifice her own comfort for the betterment of others. She didn't talk about it, she lived it. And she was so consistent with it that it became my heart. And so now my wife and I, you know, with whatever God blesses us with, we always find ourselves sowing it, giving it away. I've given away cars. I've let people stay in houses, you know, a house that I was blessed with, you know, virtually free of charge. I've done it over and over again. Anything that I've had, I don't hold on to it because I can't take it with me anyway. So I believe in sowing. And it came from watching my mother, even with the little that she had at times, giving that away. And but there are times when I long for home. It gets overwhelming, honestly. Sometimes the demand or the expectations of other people. And I want to rush back to the safety of my mom's arms. Because what people don't see is that here's this guy that's preaching. And I'm not preaching for the people. I think this is important. I'm not preaching for people. I'm preaching for me. I'm fighting for my own faith. When I'm speaking to a crowd, yes, I want them to be blessed. I want people to hear the word of God, but I'm also preaching for me, for what I'm believing for, what I'm holding on to. I'm trying to figure out what it means to be a husband when I didn't see one growing up, what it means to be a father when there were no good father figures around. I'm trying to figure out what it means to leave a legacy when I wasn't always good with saving money. You understand what I'm saying? So there's this person that I know I'm called by God to do what I do, but then there's the man who's still in development. And so there's never a moment where I can just stop the train, the John Mayer song, you know, stop this train. I want to get off and go home again. You know, I can't take the pace it's moving in, but I have to keep going. My kids don't know that daddy sometimes is hurting or is battling his own demons. My wife, and I love her, she's unbelievable, but even there are things I can't articulate to her. And those are the things I bring to the pulpit. And I think that authenticity is what people see.
There are many who believe you have to sacrifice self in order to be a good servant to God. But it sounds to me like what you're trying to showcase is that you have to nurture self in order to be good to him and also to others.
I am learning that in my life right now, that I have fought for everyone else. And I looked in the mirror and my health had taken a toll. My marriage had taken a toll. My relationship with my 2 small kids had taken a toll. When I came home the other day, my son just grabbed me and cried. And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I need you." He said, I just need you. And he wanted to hold my hand, and I had something else to do, and I let his hand go, and he just begins to weep. And he's like, "Please just hold my hand." And there's going to come a day when he's not going to want to hold my hand. So while he does, let me grab him. And am I so in need of external validation that I got to travel all over the world at the expense of my own family? And so these are the things that I'm coming to grips with, saying that season is over. The people that matter are the people that live in my house. And I certainly don't want to face God and him say, "You ran all over the world for everybody else's family and you neglected your own." I don't want that testimony. I don't want that legacy. But I was honest enough to tell my wife that one of the reasons why I was always ready and willing to go is because I didn't know if I was ready to face me.
You were running away from something in a way?
I was running away from who I had thought I was. And what I mean by that is, growing up, I was bullied. I had buck teeth, I had alopecia, so I had bald spots. I wasn't the ladies' man. I was the one they made fun of at the back of the bus. I was the one they made fun of at school. And so some of those things still sting. I don't care that I'm in my mid-40s now, but I can remember particular moments, how I felt so vulnerable. There was no one there. I felt defenseless, which is why I now fight for people who are defenseless, because I know what that feels like. And, I think that there's a moment where that vulnerability and that fear, are saying, are you adequate enough for what you have? Because there's a part, I do believe in God, and I do believe that there's a devil, and I believe that there are times when he'll whisper and say, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve this. Look where you came from. Look at your family. Look, you're going to end up just like your uncles or just like your dad. You're going to end up just like your cousins, and I've got family that has battled addictions, battled everything you can think of. But I'm still a part of them. And if that's a reality, this is a reality too. And so I'm fighting what I came from, because I have to carry it, but I also have to defeat it. So I can't deny my family history. I can't deny, the factors that developed me, but I also don't have to hold on to the negative things either.
Sure. And do you feel that those perceived weaknesses of yours are what led to gifts that others will never have, and then you chose to develop those gifts?
Wow. I believe that I never heard it put that way. But you're right. The gifts that people see were nurtured in broken places.
Right.
They were nurtured in places where the pain was, I couldn't even communicate it. So since I couldn't communicate it, I sang it. So I cultivated writing songs, and when I couldn't express it, and naturally I'd go and I'd write a monologue. I was doing Shakespeare at an urban high school in Cincinnati.
Not everybody could do that.
No, you've got to go somewhere to say, but soft what light through yonder window breaks. 'Tis the eastern Juliet, 'tis the sun, all of that. And then to learn how to express pain in positive ways without it becoming destructive. And can you take those broken places and turn it into that which is beautiful? So I use those hurting places as fertilizer. Now some flowers are growing.
Tell me about nurturing those flowers, because the story that you said about how things can pull you away from what matters, as you are blessed with all of these gifts, there comes a burden with all of that. And so figuring out balance between your ministry at Lakewood, between the TV show, the new book, which we'll talk about in just a minute.
Yay.
How do you allow God's blessings to remain a blessing and not a curse?
Wow. How do you allow God's blessings to remain a blessing and not a curse? I think everything that comes into my hands, I hold it loosely, and I genuinely ask God, which part is for me and what part is for other people? Because I've seen people who have been gifted with opportunities that I have, and they make it about themselves. Right. Then they become insular, insecure, and isolated. And what happens from there is they want to accumulate things because they feel like it's always slipping away. But because I live every day on faith, I was a guy that was believing God for houses when I had no money and terrible credit. Hilarious. My credit was hilarious. It could have had its own stand-up comedy show. You know what I'm saying? And so I've always been a crazy faith guy. It wasn't just now. I was believing God for big things when no one knew me. I always had certain passions when no one knew me. I still have them. And so now that things that I believed for are manifesting, I realize that it's not just for me, but it's for the people that are connected to me and the people coming behind me. I'm always looking for the next John Gray. I can be honest to tell you, sitting in front of you, I have not been insecure because of someone else's gift. I celebrate preachers, pastors, singers, leaders, whoever it is, because I don't want their platform, because I don't know what it took for them to get it.
Sure.
And so I think when you talk about God's blessings, people are like, oh, I wish I could, have what you have. No, until you've cried those tears, at 10 years old, until you've walked through the loneliness and the hormones of teenage years and super conservative theology with a body that says, do whatever you can while you can. Your mom's not home.
It's a life of contradiction.
It's exactly what it is. And I think that's what faith and humanity, that's the collision, that's the tension. It's I want to do that, but the word says this. And so how come you made it so good and then you don't want me to do it? It's like all of these questions. And that's where the blessings come. Can you discipline yourself enough to know that when those good things come, it's not just for you to go around and gloat like I've made it. It's about saying, God, thank you. And what do you want me to do with it? Because I'm only going to have it for a few years anyway. I mean, if I live to be 100, I need to leave something behind. A good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Right. So I need to be thinking about my grandkids in every decision that I make. So I don't want to curse it by worshiping it. And a lot of people worship the things they acquire, yes, and not the God who gave it to them.
That's right. Watching you preach is truly a gift. You have a gift in the way you reach people, the way you communicate, your humor. You are memorable. Your message is memorable. And there are many here at Lakewood who are so grateful that you are here. So tell us about your path to Lakewood.
It was 2009. I was on a plane to Australia for the Hillsong Conference. And I get to the lobby of the hotel, and there's that smiling preacher, Pastor Joel Osteen. And I'm still smelling like a 14-hour flight, but I don't care. I walk up to him and I said, excuse me, Pastor Joel, you don't know me. My name is John Gray. I just want to shake your hand and tell you you're a blessing. And he said, I know you. I was like,
you did?
Me? He said, I watched you on TBN, a sermon that you preached. And he verbatim told me my sermon. I was like, oh my God, Joel Osteen is listening to me. I'm going to actually faint and then get up and faint again. And he was so kind, and he's genuine. He has so much integrity, such character. And the next morning, the Lord woke me up and he said, go have breakfast with Joel. And I was like, I'm jet lagged, because that was not Jesus. But I'm hungry, so I'm going downstairs. Right. Went downstairs. He's sitting with his son by themselves. And I said, excuse me, can I? And he said, sure, come on over. And we talked about life and ministry, youth ministry, young adult ministry, just having conversation. And it was just a seed. And after that, I didn't see him anymore the rest of the week. Got back to Houston. A few months later, I met who was then the youth pastor of Lakewood, Nick Nilsson, at another conference in Miami. And he invited me to speak. I believe that was 2010 by then. And then I was invited multiple times. And then at one of those services, Dr. Paul was there. And he said, what you just preached was not fluff. That was substance. I'm going to ask my brother to have you on a weekend. I'm like, nope. Right. Joyce Meyer, Joseph Prince, T.D. Jakes, John Gray, whatever. And they did invite me. Yeah. And my wife and I came in August, I believe, of 2012. Yeah. And I preached a weekend. And from there, it just began to build. And by January of 2013, we accepted positions as a new associate pastors on the team. And we moved in February. And then my daughter was born in March. So my daughter is a Texan.
She sure is.
And it was a wonderful process. And now 4.5 years later, seeing what God has done, how he's built, the midweeks, and just to see the diversity and the beauty. And especially now, in the cultural climate that we exist, to see a Pastor Joel Osteen and a John Gray in the same space, right, building the kingdom, coming from very different backgrounds, different styles, but it's the same heart. That's something that I think not only the church can glean from, but society as a whole.
Sends a powerful message. Tell me about your new book.
I Am Number 8 is the name of my new book, Overlooked, Undervalued, but Not Forgotten by God. The premise of the book comes from 1 Samuel 16, where a prophet named Samuel was sent to Bethlehem to anoint a king. Jesse had some sons. He invited them into the house, and Samuel knew that God was going to anoint one of them. But when he had gone through 7 sons, God said, none of these. And Samuel asked a question. Is this all you got? Are all the young men here? And Jesse said, well, there yet remains the youngest, and he's outside keeping the sheep. Samuel says, go get him. We're not going to sit down until he shows up. When he walks in, God says, that's him, number 8. Number 8 is the number of new beginnings in biblical numerology. For those who are overlooked, undervalued, God has not forgotten you. Your process has not hidden you from God. The pain, the rejection, those are the things that made me. The moments where people misidentified gifts or because of their own insecurities couldn't celebrate what was in me, but I still was honorable. Because you learn integrity, and you learn honor not by people honoring you, but by honoring people who won't honor you.
Right.
Because honor is the currency of elevation. So the book is about the principles that one can apply to their own lives if they've ever felt like they've been overlooked, undervalued, marginalized, but that there's a gift in you that is so unique that no matter what anyone tries to do, they cannot suppress it, they cannot destroy it, it will not be broken, but it is made in the crucible of conflict and in the glorious place of anonymity. Everybody wants the public platform, but nobody wants the private pain. And so the book is about really the process of going from anonymous to necessary in one moment. David had no clue that his consistency and faithfulness in a field actually propelled him and prepared him to be a king and a military strategist, unlike the nation of Israel had ever seen. And so the premise for the average person like me and those who would read it is that there are gifts in you that might look monotonous on the surface, but when you get in the right setting, it's going to unlock not just your destiny, but the destiny of people that are connected to you. Look at where you are now. You're a voice. You are not just a personality, but a voice, a trusted voice. And I don't know your process, but I can't imagine that everybody on your way to where you are was there to celebrate. Mm-hmm. There are times of opposition, and opposition is what strengthens you for the next position. So
It's very well said, and sometimes we try to run from.
Can we just take a little wipe here?
Okay.
I'm getting
Yeah.
just a quick wipe off there.
Good.
John, is your camera off?
No, I left it running.
Keep it running?
Okay. All right. This one it takes. Yeah, I was just getting some beads there and I didn't like it. So.
okay.
All right.
Very good though, guys.
All right.
Right. I love that point because I feel that oftentimes in life we either try to avoid or run from opposition because it's scary, it's uncomfortable, but those are the moments where we grow the most.
Absolutely. I've had this conversation with my wife over the last few months that I had to identify that many times I dreaded being uncomfortable and the idea of having to face challenges, whether it was me becoming more fiscally responsible or taking the burdens of some of the things that my wife does seemingly effortlessly and saying, I can do more than just be a provider for the household. I need to really set the barometer. So I'm learning how to do some of that. When in the past, I was like, you got it, babe. But she's like, no, I really need your help here. And it's more about being mature and taking personal responsibility. And sometimes in the world of faith, we assume God's going to do everything. I've learned that a loving father who wants to see his son grow and mature will step back and make you face things that you'd rather not face, whether that's the shame of past mistakes, whether it's the fear of failure, whether it's inadequacies that are real or perceived. All of these things are necessary places of conflict. I used to think conflict was a negative thing. Some conflict is healthy, particularly internal conflict, because it steals your values. And when you know who you are, you cannot unknow it. So I'm at a place now where I know who I am in a way that I didn't know myself even a year ago. And so that is the process that I've had to walk through. And so that place of facing me, it's kind of like Jacob in the Bible when he wrestled against the man. And that's a part of my new book. But anyway, I'm not going to tell y'all yet. Y'all need to just stay tuned.
Sounds to me like growth and development is that. We must be open to it and rely on God throughout.
I am at a place now where my idea about God, my idea about who Jesus is so much bigger than when I first began my faith journey. And it's almost like my faith walk and my manhood maturity are kind of going in the same trajectory at the same time. And I'm realizing that God is much bigger than I gave him credit for. And I'm a lot smaller than I thought. I'm just a part of what he's doing, but my part is significant. And my job is to help other people find and identify the significance of their role in life. So many people are just existing, but when you understand your purpose, you begin to thrive. You have a quickening, an awakening, an awareness like, oh yes. And it doesn't mean everything's gonna be perfect, but now I know that I have something to do, something that will outlast me, something that brings value and substance to other people's lives. And yes, growth is a continuous, consistent process, particularly with the Lord. You've got to stay in scripture. You've got to stay in prayer. And these are things that I'm learning as disciplines. But I also think now with a long-term mindset. I used to hope, because growing up, they're like, Jesus could come back at any moment. I'm like, please come back, because I don't want to die. But now it's like, you know what, God, if I do my job right, then my son, my daughter, their children will continue upon the legacy that I leave. So I've got to continue to live a life worthy of the gifts that I've been given for free, the calling that he gave me. And where I did not have my father's shoulders to stand on, my kids will be able to stand on my shoulders, and they will go further than me, and they'll run faster than me, and they'll fly higher than me. And I see myself, I know this is weird, but my wife and I talk about, when our time is finished on the earth. And I always see myself on the plot of ground that we're going to be buried in. And I see myself, and I can hear myself talking to me saying, good job, well done. That's what I want to get to. That's what means the most to me. That when I leave here, I've done what I was supposed to do, and that I leave something of value for my family so they can be proud of me. That's all I want. I want to live well and die right.
I want you to speak quickly to the younger generation who is so caught up in public affirmation, validation from the outside and not within. When you look at social media, when you look at the value system.
Yeah.
Talk to them about going inside.
To this younger generation they're social media savvy, but they are emotionally calorie deficient. Many of them suffer from a term that I coined called circumference validation syndrome, where you need the people in your immediate circle of influence to tell you who you are. And when they don't, you don't know what to do or how to be or what to become. And they always follow trends, but nobody's making the trends. And that was the one thing about me. There was a moment where I wanted to be like everyone else. But they kept making fun of me because you're the church boy, you're the virgin. Your mom said you can't have sex till you're married, and you listen, you're an idiot. Then all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, I'm the church boy. I'm the virgin. I can be like them at any moment, but they can't be like me again. Oh my goodness, so the things they're making fun of actually give me value. And so whether it's moments like that or moments of self-awareness where you're somewhere in your selfie mirror and you're trying to fix what was never broken, I hope that young people will realize that it doesn't matter how many people like your picture or how many people follow you or how many people retweet you, but that your value is inherent because of the God who created you. You were created with purpose, for purpose, on purpose. And so whether you're called to reach 1 or 1 million, your life has value. And the value of your life is not determined by those who can't see you. They didn't make you. And so everyone won't understand you. They won't understand your vision. They won't understand your calling because they didn't make you and they didn't call you. My prayer for this generation is that God will wrap his arms around them and lovingly by his spirit, let them know that not only does he understand them, he overstands them because he created them. All of this creativity, all of this angst, we're seeing a groundswell of young people who are philanthropic. They don't even have money, but they want a cause. They're looking for something to believe in. And I think if the church grabs that heart and that passion and directs it into a way that builds bridges, we could see a resurgence in morality, in ethics, in community service, in activism, but most importantly, in healthy families. And so I tell young people all the time, be careful how you live, because what you do at 15 affects your 25.
That's right. I love what you said. I love that.
Thank you.
Before I bring her in, tell me a little bit about Aventer.
Oh my gosh. Aventer Gray she's a gem. She's a rare jewel, a jewel that I'm still discovering. I didn't know who I married when I married her. I knew God told me to pursue her. I knew that she came from an amazing family. I knew that she was extremely gifted, well educated. I knew she was beautiful, but I didn't know that she had so many artistic and creative gifts, hopes and dreams, the things that she's able to do with her time, juggling full-time ministry, the dance ministry at Lakewood, 2 children, and braiding hair while cooking. This woman is a star. She can do it all. And what touches me the most about Aventer is that I didn't want her to see the actual me, but because she was the closest to me, she saw me. And what I mean by that is not the public guy, not the guy under the lights, but the one that's still the little boy that's afraid of being hurt, the one that still makes mistakes, the one that, doesn't always get it right. And she chooses to love that man every single day. And that blows me away, because there are many things that I've manifested in immaturity or, ignorance, not knowing, not having a teacher. And it could very easily cause her to shut down, but she keeps coming back. And I've asked her many times, why do you love me? And she said, I see you. I just do. I love you. And that's the kind of love that I needed. Her love healed me. God used her love to heal areas of my life that I didn't even know I was broken in. And it takes somebody who will fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. That's who you keep. That's who gets the upgraded ring. Hello. That's who gets the purses. That's who gets the naughty time.
Okay, it's time for her to chime in.
Come on, babe.
We gotta get her right.
Oh my God, that's
Put it on airplane mode. Post oak.
Yeah.
That's right.
Post cereal oak.
Okay, cereal oak.
Post cereals.
That's right. Yeah, all of our kids are everywhere. We've got 4 kids in 3 different schools right now.
No way.
So it's like carpool, cockroaches scattering in the morning.
Come
That's
on.
what we look like. This one going here, and this one going there, and this one here at this time and that time.
No way.
It's wild. Yeah.
I'm rolling.
Yeah. We're ready? Okay. All right, so Miss Aventer, I just had John talk about you. Now I want you to describe your husband.
Oh my goodness. Do you have enough time?
Sure, we got all day.
My husband is one of the most amazing heart people that I have ever met. I've had to learn as a wife to look at situations that we may walk through. If it's something that we don't agree upon, I will check his heart, because that's his greatest commodity. He is a beautiful bundle of joy, a beautiful bundle of love. He doesn't have enough to spread it around, because he would try for the world to get them covered by the love that he has. But I really feel like John is one of the greatest gifts to the body of Christ. He is the love of my life. He is my best friend. He's an amazing father. I mean, people see the pastor and they see the speaker, the person who is jovial, always laughing and able to communicate a thought in an amazing way. But I see this incredible man who loves his family, loves his mother, which was very important to me when we were dating, and is always searching to be a better him. He is never, gosh, what is the word I'm looking for? Content with where he is. He's always looking to better himself. He is a searcher, and I'm so grateful to God that He allowed our lives to align, and we're walking this thing out together, because I see a lot of myself in him. A lot of our personalities just kind of clicked, and I was like, "You're a pastor? Is that true?" You know, I didn't.
You didn't believe it?
I never saw. No, it's not that I didn't believe it. I just never
saw anything like
saw that we would that I would be married to a pastor at all. He's great.
I'm going to pause. Your hair is brushing, only when you turn, but
I can move it.
yeah, if you could
Move your hair, please.
Your hair is just rubbing on the mic. Just on a couple turns.
What is it doing? Is it
Good.
clear
I
now?
think you're clear.
Hello.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want a little bit of cleave too. Hello. For the news people. There we go.
See what I'm saying? That's exactly what I'm talking about. He said a little bit of cleave.
Little cleave unto me. Bosom buddies. Stop it, John.
He's a great person.
She said facetiously.
Right.
An amazing, incredible human. God,
And funny. Boy, is
very
he
funny.
That's why you can't say mad at
It's
me.
not fair.
Right? How do you get mad at this?
It's
impossible.
uncommon. It's uncommon.
Yeah.
Because when I want to convey a thought and I'm very serious, he will find a
He's
way
doing it right now.
to redirect my anger and turn it into laughter. And that is so unfortunate for me, because I don't want to do that. I want my anger and my madness to prevail in the moment.
Right.
And he very quickly disarms me with his unique way of bringing light. But I think that's how God made him.
Yeah. I'm not a conflict guy.
Right.
And so whatever I can do to
He
get
tries
out
to
of
get out of
conflict-
there. He tries to get out of there real
But I do
quick.
it in a loving way. It's not like I said, it's over, woman, and walk away. I just start doing like a weird dance, like, girl, you love me, girl. Ah. And then just start laughing, and then
That's
it's over.
terrible. But it's unfair. But I love it, and he's one of the greatest people I know. He's one of my heroes. I love him so much.
Oh,
Wow.
wow.
Never heard you say that. You're trying to make me cry on camera. It's
Go ahead,
almost like
cry,
I'm
cry,
not.
cry,
Just
cry,
like my
cry,
son
cry.
says, Daddy, cry.
He did.
Yeah, he like my son likes to see, because we do this little play thing, and he'll act like he's hitting me. I'm like, and he's like, do it again, cry, Daddy, cry. And so we just have our little games. But I didn't expect for you to say that. It caught me off guard, because you already know, and I tell everybody you're my hero.
Me?
Oh yeah, because you fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself, and you ascribed value to me beyond what I saw. Because I don't understand what you see. Because there are times when I see the broken thing, and you see the beautiful thing.
All the
And
time.
you always say that. I was like, why do you tell me I'm beautiful? She tells me, she says, you're so beautiful.
He is. He's just
And
beautiful.
I'm like, that is so freaking sexy.
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, don't get 2 more kids messing with me.
Oh my gosh. That's embarrassing.
It's
Not
clear
yet.
to see the joy that the two of you have. What about the times of struggle? What have been some of your hardships and things to overcome, and how can our audience benefit from learning about that?
Wow.
Wow. What I think is important for people to know is that the lifestyle, or completely understanding what it means to be sold out for for God and to live for Him at our best, because we're not perfect, it includes a lot of sacrifice. I never want my husband to feel boxed in, so I enjoy sharing him with everybody or anybody that he's been called to speak to, but that isn't necessarily always locally. So it can be across the nation and of course in recent years abroad, internationally, and we are not always able to be with him. A lot of times we are not with him, but most recently we've been able to go. But when we are apart and things happen, it's really hard because he's like, I should have been home, but I'm like, no, you should have been there, you know, and I got it. But it is a really, it's really hard to sometimes sacrifice the time, because time is just that one thing you can't get back. But we have learned and we have prayed about recently what's most important regarding family and how we can be together in ministry together, bringing the kids along, or he'll say no, and a lot of times people don't like it, but it's for the betterment of our family at the time.
Yeah, I didn't know how to say no, because I thought
the
that,
hardest little word to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
because I don't want people to think that I've graduated beyond whatever the opportunity is, because I know what it was like to be, you know, kind of the guy nobody knew. And I was faithful to churches that other people might not go to. But now it's about managing my time, because I was single then.
Right.
And I remember one time we were having a spirited discussion about an opportunity. And I said, babe, you know, this is a significant opportunity. She was like, but at the expense of your family? And it hit me, because I was still living as a single evangelist when I'm a married pastor. And so I can't make decisions as if my wife is devoid of needing me or my children. And that was hard. And I think another one of the difficulties is dealing with someone who was not skilled relationally as far as long-term relationship. My wife and I are working on something right now called relationship goals with the hashtag.
Yeah, because we get that often on social media, because they're looking at what they see as success or what they have labeled it as success, but it doesn't come without a price.
That's right,
And an effort and a learning journey, because we have had times where we have discussed, are we staying together or what? You know, it is not perfect, but I thank God for his perfecting us with each obstacle we're brought to, and then we eventually overcome. I feel strongly that it's important for people to know that hashtag relationship goals means that you seed yourself in the word, you have yourself prepared for the storms, because the great times are amazing. That's easy to weather with each other. The celebratory things, the things that don't take much effort, but when the misunderstandings come in because you are two completely different people trying to merge, trying to join forces, trying to understand one another. I'm not a 6'3", bald, 300 and something
240 pounds
man, and he's not a 5'5" and a
Sit
half
there and tell these people.
Lost 25 pounds.
woman.
Hello.
He has.
I got
He
a
has.
1-pack.
He's not me, and I'm not him. And so, I think the run-in happens when he doesn't think like me, or he doesn't see things my way,
Sure.
and I don't think like him. And
I was just moving this, baby. I'm sorry. So it doesn't hit the mic again.
okay, and he doesn't see things my way, and I don't see things his way. But that's the beauty, because we're not the same people.
Right.
We're completely two different people who are always trying to become one. I think the misnomer is that when you get married, the day at the altar, that it immediately happens, you're automatically one. But I think that is the span of your life, trying to become one. The span of however long you're married, you are actively becoming every day. And so when issues come up, It doesn't necessarily end wrapped up in a neat bow. That's where you go to the scriptures, and God makes it clear that if we cannot agree on something, that the husband as the leader of the household is the one whose voice should prevail. And if by chance he is wrong, which is often, okay, then God will handle it with him and I will be covered, right? I'm just saying, but we have to teach on that, and we have to make people know that it's not always fun and games. Yes, we laugh a lot. We love. We're learning to understand what God requires of us, what he requires of us as individuals, collectively in marriage, as parents, how we are to rear our kids. All of those things are actively in our minds. And so it can get overwhelming. But at the end of the day, we have to remember that we love each other. And how is it that we came to be in the beginning? That's what happens with people when they lose sight of why they were brought together from the beginning. And I think it will heal a lot of people, because John and I are still little kids in certain regards of our life, certain aspects of our life. So the parts that I couldn't speak to, he looked elsewhere. And the parts that he couldn't speak to, I looked elsewhere, whether it was just shopping,
Food.
indefinitely, you know what I'm saying, food, or a conversation that shouldn't have taken place with someone from years ago, things of that nature that people need to be aware of. But then we get the healing and we're able to really tell you what #relationship goals are.
And that's the transparency that people don't get from people in ministry.
Right.
Because the portrayal of
Perfection,
Yes.
it's not attainable.
It's not, it's impossible. There is no such thing as perfection.
And then people give up before they even start. And babe, I'm sorry for cutting you off.
I think the important thing is, if you're going to be an authentic leader to this type of discerning generation, you need to start with your scars. Start without the makeup of religion and say, we are searching for truth like you. We are following hard after Jesus like you. We're not above you. We're walking with you.
Right.
And what she said, and I kind of shared, also, there are times when the loneliness and the fear and the intimidation of the responsibility that comes with being a husband and father was overwhelming. And all I saw from the men in my family were men who left.
Right.
So when conflict rises, I'm like, I'll just leave. And God's like, you're going to stay home and you're going to work it out. And I'm like, no, I'm good by myself. I'm an only child. I'll make it. And so where I get attacked is in the area of isolation. So I'll shut down emotionally. I don't want to talk, or, you look for validation in places where you shouldn't. But that's because you haven't fully healed from places of earlier rejection. When you're looking for validation from places where you were previously rejected, it opens you up for things that should have been closed a long time ago. Those are things that people in the Christian world don't often talk about. They don't talk about it because it's not comfortable, and they want people to assume like, hey, look at our success story.
We're perfect.
Yeah, the self-help, that whole self-help vibe. If self-help books really worked, wouldn't that section be
empty?
It'd be empty. The truth is, I can't help myself. There are things I need God's help with. And by the blood of Jesus, he's helping me to put in roots and to build with this woman who, for some strange reason, loves the real me, not the projected me.
I love that. And what I will add to that, and you all are touching upon this, it's a thread that is woven through everything that you say, and that the role of a woman and a man, not only in a relationship but as parents, boundaries have blurred, and the roles have been redefined, because women are not only homemakers and caretakers, they're also providers, and sometimes the breadwinner in a house. Men oftentimes are not just the dad who goes out and brings home the bacon, but he's expected to be attentive as a parent, attentive as a husband, to be there, to be present, which means that the demands on the individual are far greater than they used to be. And now you bring all of that together. So let's talk about this balance of what is expected of you as a husband, as a wife, as a dad, as a mom, and then how you balance all of that with your ministry and what's expected of you here at Lakewood.
Wow. I think that is critical to where we just left as far as the conversation, because when men think about their wives and their children, they love them, but they also see big responsibility. Mm-hmm. Whereas the roar of the crowd and people who don't really know you is more attractive at the time. Sure. So that is where we have to make sure that home is a peaceful place, even in the midst of all the chaos. And balance, I used to talk about fighting for balance, but I really think it's an illusion. Mm-hmm. I think that God gives you grace for the season that you're in, Great. Which means that you need to actively ask the Lord to help you navigate the waters of the chaos that you're in, to make sure that he's getting glory, complete glory out of it. And in that, it is rough. It is really hard. I look at the schedule. Now it has like the ministry schedule, it has the travel schedule, it has the kids' school schedule, it has the parent-teacher, parent associations. It keeps adding, and then the kids, we want them to be well-rounded. We have an ice skater in our home, a dancer, t-ball and basketball and piano for him. It's just so much, and it can really make you blow a gasket. And you have to, at the end of the day, you have to pause. You have to remember that, why are we really doing this? We have to make sure that God is okay with everything that we're doing. And I think it only stays chaotic if we try to infuse things that are good versus the things that are really from God. Mm-hmm. So in all of that, I'd say that we pray a lot, and we are consistently trying to find balance and trying to alleviate that stress factor, because you can actually really make yourself sick when you have too much going on. And we have hit that barrier already. Yeah. So then it's like, God, okay, scaling back, moving back, working things out, and understanding that no is the best friend for our family life to work. Mm-hmm. So I really feel strongly that the way I'm able to balance things is just to be completely organized, and we lean on people who are very close to us to really help us navigate these waters as well, because it is not easy.
Yeah, I think for me, the whole idea of balance, when you say balance, I think of a scale, and the only way that a scale can be balanced is if both sides are equal. The challenge is I can't exist in balance between ministry and family because they don't weigh the same. My family has to weigh eternally more than ministry. And that's how you see people who have the look of success as far as ministry, but a broken family structure. Mm-hmm. And then people are shocked. But if you're traveling 300 days a year, you probably have some challenges in your marriage. Right. Your kids probably don't like church as much because they see that an invisible God is more important than a tangible you. So what I've realized is that I love the assignment that we have for this season of our lives, but I will not let it run me. I won't worship it. And so I put ministry in its place, and it's third. Ministry is third place. She's first. The kids are second. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, church is fourth place. The ministry is fourth place, because after her and the kids, I got to take care of me. Absolutely. Because if I don't do that, then the whole thing falls down. Mm-hmm. Because God forbid anything happens to me tonight, all those places that I traveled are not going to raise my kids. They'll find somebody else to take my place at the conference next year, and they'll put a nice tribute video up. But they won't be there to rub my daughter's head and hold my son's hand. And so I've got to take care of her, those kids, me, then the ministry. And I've got to make that way more than church. So there won't be a balance. And I hope I never have balance. I hope that I'm totally imbalanced towards my family.
Good for you.
Beautiful.
Would you agree that whoever came up with that expression, absence makes the heart grow fonder, was full of it?
Full of it.
Oh my goodness. They were completely full of it. It lasts for one day, and then No, I
My wife-
actually love for you to be
My
here.
wife texts me after I just left to go to the airport. She's like, come home. I'm like, babe, I'm on 45.
What are you doing? Or if he's in his favorite place, which is the restroom, I'll just be like, what are you doing? And he's like, I think you might know
where
what's
I'm at.
happening.
And she'll come in there. That's when you know it's love.
And bring
She
the
just-
kids.
everybody-
And we'll light a candle.
Seriously? Well, yeah.
When we're being extra, we
All 4 of them are in there, and I'm like, can I have one moment in the name of God?
no.
No.
Especially when they have schedules now where they have to come home, do your homework, get to bed because the
right.
next day is so early again.
So you better be glad
So
we're
we
showing
make
up in your bathroom.
we make the
Yeah.
time we can
Yeah.
wherever.
We have, bathroom sing-alongs and such, and it's amazing. You can't ever tape that.
I think we should. It'd be great.
Yeah, that'll go viral.
I love it. Oh my God, you guys are incredible. Incredible.
Thank you.
And transparent and open and real. And I love that. Our audience is going to love that. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Yay.
Anything else? Stay up for a little bit. Couple cutaways.
Amazing. Kara, I don't know what on earth what you're going to do with all of
Exactly. I
this.
have to go be a surgeon now and
Edit.
and-
How are you what is this gonna turn into like a 2-minute deal or?
3. I'm gonna push for 3, but here's the thing. I have social media, so my web story is going to be amazing with lots of different video nuggets and clips because
It lives in
this
forever.
was really, really
In perpetuity.
Exactly.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, this was excellent, guys.
Oh, amazing.
Aw, bye.
Hey, John, can you get on the other side a little while?
Yeah.
Jen, am I in your way?
Nope, yeah, I see the reflection.
So I'm guessing you guys are home for a while.
Nope.
Leave tomorrow.
We leave in the morning, and also trying to figure out if I need to pack my kids to go.
Well,
Because
yeah.
if we get stuck away,
Right, you're not getting back in. Airports are going to be shut down.
Do they really think it's gonna be
Yeah.
bad?
They
Like,
do.
and it's
When?
Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Sunday, Monday,
like,
Tuesday.
into
Where are you
next
going?
week.
Where are you guys going?
Yeah.
going to
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
And for how long?
Well, I was going overnight and coming back, but John has to go to DC after we leave Atlanta to preach.
Okay.
And he
then
wasn't
come
coming back until Monday.
Oh, they're going to have airports closed on
Yeah.
Monday.
You will be delayed getting back in.
For sure.
It's gonna be,
For sure.
if it happens the way they said, it's gonna be bad.
And
When
you
are
know
they
what
gonna know the
there was one
projection?
time that Lakewood canceled weekend services and nothing happened.
I know.
I mean, it was sunny, people were
Yeah.
swimming and everything.
And that's the bad thing about it, because people keep that in their mind, and they're like, oh, the last time nothing happened.
Yeah.
And then
so-
something,
and they
but-
don't
Right.
prepare.
And then no
Well,
one's
no, we're
We
prepared.
gotta look
Yeah.
this way because they're doing cutaways. Yeah, we gotta be prepared.
Yeah. So I'm really sad that you guys are leaving now. Well, your kids started school already. Because
Yes.
I know a lot of school districts, your kids are missing a couple of days of kindergarten.
No, no.
That's not gonna be the difference between Harvard and
Wait, what time are you guys leaving tomorrow?
8:10.
Yes.
First thing smoking.
Yeah, because I think tomorrow is, yeah, those will be the last flights out. By the evening, I think they're gonna shut down, because they're gonna have a hard time even getting crews on the planes. And the day
Jesus.
crews can't get there, planes are canceled. Oh. So we're just chatting? You just want us to chat? Okay. So tell me about what you'll be doing in Atlanta and then Washington.
I will be in Atlanta for the album release for a friend of ours. Her name is Tasha Cobbs. She's a Grammy Award-winning gospel artist. I count her among my her and her husband are close friends of ours. And so I'll be there in Atlanta for that. Then I'm speaking at a youth conference Saturday in D.C. I'm preaching at a church in Manassas, Virginia. And I'm doing a racial reconciliation service, 2 of them, while I'm there on Sunday night. It's called Heal Our Land. It's going to be aired on TV. We've got senators coming.
Great.
And
Who's
I'll-
airing it, do you know?
I don't know. I'll find out. But I'll be speaking because that's a part of my heart, and it's not far from Charlottesville.
It's so
And
important right
so I'm going to be very wise and diplomatic in the way I approach it. And I think it will probably shock some who think I would probably come out more abrasive, but I'm not. Abrasive rhetoric right now doesn't help anything.
Yeah.
I'm trying to heal. And so I'm going to speak to both sides
Good.
and see where that leads us.
Do you think pastors need to be more open and out there when it comes to getting involved in things like that?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know I probably many.
It's very interesting, and I shared this. I was very honest. I said, depending on who you are, your Jesus looks different, you know. And unfortunately, how you appropriate Jesus, they didn't want to let go of slavery. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of the Christian schools that were built in the '60s were a response to desegregation, and so Southern whites wanted Christian schools, which was a nice way of saying, I'm going to keep my kids away from, you know, these black kids. And so they created these private Christian schools. And so it's very heartbreaking and fascinating that you can sing hymns on Sunday and lynch somebody on Tuesday.
That's right.
And so